The Trump show hits the road every once in a while, and the aperture opens. And welcome to the second term. He hit a lot of themes that he'd hit previously in this, although probably more strongly than in the past. Basically, he sort of assailed the UN over, as you mentioned, climate and immigration as two big topics, going so far as to basically completely dismiss the notion of climate change as a hoax, but also on immigration, saying that it's the single biggest political issue of our era. So trying to draw a line in the sand. But Trump, he talked about the teleprompter not working. This was sort of a bit of his in the campaign. Let's just say it's open to interpretation whether that was actually the case or not. The UN said the teleprompter was working fine. And of course but then was griping about the escalator.
That was not working fine.
That was not. I can confirm the escalator was not working, and then later was working. It seemed to get under his skin, and that's when he went off about the renovation that he wished he'd done, and told them, you could be walking on marble, you're walking on terrazzo flooring, you know that, right? So, it was a journey, a weave, as President Trump likes to say, but I think it just underscores not only his longstanding disdain for the UN. Remember, the U.S. is delinquent right now in its funds to support the UN. Trump has given no indication that he plans to change that, but also that kind of new grievances are adding on. In particular, he thinks he's obviously kind of gently, somewhat campaigning for a Nobel Prize. He talks about ending 7 wars, and he's wondering where the UN has been. He sort of wanted credit for it, said they didn't get a phone call. But Trump being Trump, he got off stage, sat down with Guterres, and then was all smiles and nice. So pick your lens, I suppose.
Yeah, even mentioning other leaders who he had said things about, but then had run into personally, essentially saying, I ran into this person, I can't believe I'm going to be talking about this. And it's kind of, for you who covers Trump, covers the president, it's not surprising because that's the way he is. But for world leaders who are sitting there, who are not necessarily accustomed to following every comment that he makes, especially at the UN, this was unconventional.
I think that's fair to say. I mean, if you're being sort of re-onboarded into a Trump speech after maybe 6 years, it had been since his last one, for sure, this is going to take you by storm. I do think that there are things to watch that will make news today, for sure, beyond the speech, including the bilateral with President Zelensky, which should be wrapping up just as we speak, right, or just has wrapped up. Trump has really shifted on Zelensky a lot. He said today that it's remarkably brave what the Ukrainians are doing. That is a big shift in tone from January. And so that one we're watching, he sort of tacitly endorsed the notion of NATO nations shooting down Russian planes if they violate
Does that have to do with the recent violations of airspace that we've seen?
I think I personally would read that more as a Trump sort of hand-wavy type of comment. I would not read that as like an emphatic shift in U.S. policy. Okay. He sort of danced around the drone issue. He danced around it again in a separate answer today. But he did say flatly, yes, he thinks that NATO should have the right to shoot down Russian planes, not drones, if they incur on NATO airspace. So we'll see. As you know, this is speaking of longtime grievances. It wasn't just the UN. NATO, of course, he has had sort of a bumpy ride with, but he's been more pro-NATO as of late, in particular touting the increased defense spending pledges from Europe and Canada and other allies generally. So I think that one we got a lot of eyes on. This Macron meeting could be interesting. He made a little bit of news last night, wandering the streets of New York, upset about the president's motorcade. We can all relate to that.
Well, everybody knows a city bike is the way to go during UN General Assembly. So if only he had had a helmet, maybe we would have seen the French leader on a city bike.
We can hope.
That would have been lovely.
Yes, yeah, we can hope. But that'll be a good one. Trump is hosting a reception tonight. We don't actually know who's going. Huh. So we don't know if this is sort of a friends-only thing, like, Milei and the other whatevers, or if it's a broader thing. So we'll see. We don't know right now whether they'll let the press in, but I'll be there waiting, hoping, praying. So
Josh,
I'll keep you posted.
Hey, I'll be here outside waiting for you guys to invite me in.
On your city bike?
Yeah.
On your city bike?
Yeah.
I mean, against everything else that's going, we're still doing stories about the H-1B visas. I mean, there's just so much, Josh. When you look at the president, I don't know how you guys do it because there's so much coming at you. Top of the White House agenda right now, because sometimes I feel like, watch here, guys, but don't look at here, which is maybe something impactful. I don't know. How are you sussing out kind of what matters right now when it comes to the White House? I
mean, Trump always likes to flood the zone. That's been a consistent theme throughout his presidencies. I think on the H-1B thing, this is a big change, and it's a little unclear to me whether they're shifting it on the fly. Remember, they had their big announcement Friday. Everyone's brains exploded. On Saturday, they started to, let's say, detail, critics might say walk back some of the things. For instance, Secretary Lutnick said things on Friday that have not ultimately been the policy. And then today, the new development is sort of getting rid of the lottery system. We knew that was happening. Trump had signaled before the whole $100,000 fee thing that was happening. But this is a huge change. And so they, whether its impact on the tech sector, on healthcare, all this is really up in the air right now. And it's, part and parcel, obviously, with a complete overhaul of the American immigration system as he sees it. So, people that have H-1Bs now are breathing a sigh of relief, because there was a moment there where they were like, oh, shoot, we got to get back on U.S. soil, in hours, but it doesn't look like that's the case.